One of the things the media does not see or does not get right to me is thinking that the movement for Black Lives only sees police brutality as a problem and doesn't have a scope or sphere around what community violence looks like. We see community violence and we see it as part of this greater problem of state violence against Black bodies. And when you really look at that, it also, like, where is the money going? Like when we're talking about all this money going to CPD, that money could go to things that are actually moving the needle on against that violence and uplifting both women, trans, queer people to make sure that they have safe spaces. And I think that's a really important thing to also bring up when we're thinking about like what community violence looks like, because it's not just people shooting each other. It's also domestic violence. It's also other issues that stem from poverty, that stem from people not having adequate shelter. It stems from people not having the basic needs.
First off, whoever is playing the role of peacemaker should actually be a peacemaker as opposed to somebody that's just violent and like bullying mugs. So like if somebody's gonna play a role I don't think we should have police, first off, but if somebody's gonna play a role that is actually, the intention is to keep peace and to keep people safe, they should like live in the place where they're doing that at, so it could be more direct accountability. Like if you did some sort of bullshit to somebody and like you hurting them, you have to see that person like every day, you know what I mean? You have to see the people that are affected by you hurting that person, that are affected by the things that you're doing.
I think that one of the issues, one of the problems within our community, both with family and young persons. So I deal with a lot of young people, 14 to 24 age. Most of them have been court involved. Many of them I got to know why they're locked up. There is this disconnect with the young people and their families and the police. So what I would say to the police is to get to know the community, to really engage young people, not just when something's going down, but rather to find out a little bit more about who they are as a person. Our young people, because of the way they look, because of the neighborhood they come from, oftentimes are labeled. They're labeled bad or problematic or a thug or a thief or whatever the person might label them. And yet, every one of them, if you get to know them, have a good part and are good people. And what we try to do is create an environment where that goodness, where they feel safe enough and cared for enough and valued enough, where that goodness can be alive and lived.
People who say, oh, we want to have the police wear body cams. Well, without a civilian police accountability council, who's checking the footage, right? Or for people who say, we need to train the police. Well, who's making sure that there's a mandate behind the training, right? That, not only, we give them diversity training, but we say, reduce your numbers, right? Reduce the number of Black people that you are arresting, right? That is that council. But don't get me wrong, even though I'm for the council, I'm for anything that's saving lives right now. So I think that reform helps us to survive. And I think it's important until we can change the system, right? Those changes become permanent. And the more changes we overlap, the better the system, the more the system is looking like what we would like the system to be. But I'm not waiting for the system to change, right? Like I am in my community working with other Black people to create protective mechanisms with other Black people so that we won't have to call the police in the first place.
In the area of India that my family is from, it's a state called Gujarat, which was the first area that the British went to colonize, which is also the most neoliberal and modernized part of India. And it is also the part of India that has the highest rates of genocides that are happening. And so I have an uncle who actually was murdered by the police when he was going out to stop one of the genocides from happening in our village. And so I think about India, and I think about how I come from this context and also this culture where the state solves its problems by just murdering people, just death is a solution.